Let's return to This Week in America. Here's your host, Rick Bratton.
Welcome back, everybody, coast to coast. This Week in America. There are plenty of relationship self-help books out there that try to help folks with making that decision, whether to stay or go, how to make it work, how to recover from abuse, and so much more. Well, the purpose of the new book, and I'm going to spell this first title for you, End Your Relation, and then relation is followed by S-H*T, with compassion, self-respect, and logic, by our guest on the program, D.L. Dempsey, is to help those people who are in a relationship that is really already over. No one knows how to get out or staying for reasons that are out of one's control. This is the book DL wishes she had when she was stuck, trying to find ways out of her stale, verbally abusive marriage for years, and she hopes it could possibly save your life. D.L. Dempsey is a proud, decorated military veteran, single mom, first-time author. Though she's not a marriage family therapist, she has most often been that person that people would go to for personal advice and guidance. She holds an Associate of Science in Public Health, a bachelor's degree focused on conflict mediation and communication, a Master of Public Health, and a Master of Science in Nursing, where she gained deep insight into human behavioral and psychiatrical health. D.L. Dempsey, author of End Your Relation, and the last part of that is S-H*T, with compassion, self-respect, and logic, a memoir and practical guide to help you end your relationship. Winner, by the way, of the prestigious Plume Award for Literary Excellence. And D.L. is with us on This Week in America. D.L., welcome to the program. It's great to have you with us.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, this is such an important topic, and I'm really glad that you've got time to spend the program with us and to talk about it. You captured me with the title. When you see that on the book, it captures your attention right off the bat. And I'll explain that and spell that as we go through. But give me a little bit about what's in the book. I just sort of really touched the surface there of how the book came about. What's in the book?
So I have the book split into 3 parts. Part 1 is a section that talks about, stepping outside of your situation, like you're a third-party perspective, and you're looking at the facts. You're looking at what's right in front of you, because you might have been seeing all of these signs from God or the universe or your greater power telling you that what you're going through is not mandatory. And then part 2 kind of talks about kind of health history and history about the sociology of relationships, from what we learned through Disney princess movies and romantic comedies growing up, and maybe what we might have been exposed to from our own parents and what they might have gone through. And then part 3 walks you through the process. I actually provide step-by-step scripts to help you guide your conversation when you initiate the breakup. And I've always been the kind of person that would be the initiator of breakups and my divorce, because I've learned that if I'm not happy, if my purpose isn't being fulfilled as being in this relationship, then I want to take control of my life and I want to be happy. I don't want to rely on somebody else to, provide that for me. That should come from within. So that is the way I break down the book. And I started writing it to myself, from my current self to my past self 10, 15 years ago, kind of guiding myself. And then I said, you know what? This could really help somebody. So
and it is, and it's so well laid out, logically laid out, and here's information that will touch so many people. And talk about that process of deciding, this is my story, but I think my story can help other people. How difficult was it to make that decision? Because in doing this, you're sort of reliving, first of all of your experiences, and second of all, sharing them publicly. What went through your mind as you were determining, I'm going to write this book?
I've learned over the years that when you're struggling and going through a hard time, you are not alone. You're never, ever, ever alone. And I felt it was comfortable sharing my story and guiding my readers to how my therapists have guided me, which are all peer-reviewed, evidence-based research, step-by-step procedures and behavioral techniques, that I figured if therapists can share it with me, why can't I share it with everybody else? There's published articles and journals out there about everything that I share in my book, and why not teach you how to actually apply it? Sometimes people think, I don't want to see a therapist because I I don't know, whatever reasons that they have, about seeing therapy. Maybe I won't be able to work it out. Maybe I won't be able to apply it to my life. It's not going to really affect me in my own personal situation. But if somebody shares how they applied it to their lives, you might think, oh, wow, you can apply this. This is really cool. So that's kind of where I went with that. That's the mindset that I was in.
Yeah, and people can do it from the privacy of their own homes. They're not in with a group of people. They're not meeting a stranger and opening up and telling their stories. It's such a wonderfully written book. And D.L. Dempsey is our guest, the author. That's Dempsey. The book is End Your Relation, and then the last part of that is sh*T. The book's available, of course, at all the usual places. I'll send you writersrepublic.com, for example, and the bookshop has it. And you can click on directly by going to our website, thisweekinamerica.us. How do you think people will get the most out of your book? How did you design it? And you talked a little bit about how you laid this out. How will people get the most benefit from reading your book?
One, actually read it, not skim through it.
Exactly.
I've been guilty of I've ever skimmed through a book and you might miss out on some good details. But there are actually workbook pages that walk you through the steps and the processes that I share to get you to write down, kind of like a journal. With every chapter, there are workbook journal-like pages where I encourage the reader to take note of what they are going through and how they can overcome it and change the way they're thinking.
Well, yes, it's laid out so it really helps you and gets you thinking as you're going through the process with DL. Who is the main audience for the book? When you sat down to write this, and I mentioned there are a number of self-help relationship books out there. This one is unique. What audience are you going for?
Really, the audience that I'm going for, there's really no age limit, but it could be teenagers, it could be seniors, it could be middle-aged people, young women, anybody who is going through a relationship that they feel they cannot relate to their person. I mean, if you think about the word relationship, the root word is relation. Relationship is, you have the ability, the mutual ability and willingness to relate to one another. You can resolve conflicts because you take the time to relate to one another. But if you're in a relationship that does not allow that, then this is the book for you.
What kind of response are you getting? What impact do you hope you have on those who read the book and those that have read the book and talked with you and those that maybe helped you formulate? I mentioned you're the one that people would go to discuss their problems. What impact do you hope you have on the people who are reading the book and following the principles you established there?
I hope that whoever reads this book and applies the lessons that I share, I hope to God, and I hope from the bottom of my heart that they follow through with what the universe and what God is trying to tell them, and that they come out of this feeling empowered and self-sufficient and willing to take control of their lives and live their lives without any regrets. I have known too many people who become older and they maybe end up with cancer and they have so much regret from staying with their horrible, mentally and emotionally draining relationship for 10, 15, 20 plus years. I want people to live the rest of their lives feeling joy that they create themselves or from their passions, not from trying to please somebody that's not willing to receive the pleasure. So I hope that people are willing to realize and maybe consider the fact that in their lives, if they're going through this, that they have the choice to improve their lives because the stress they're going through affects you physically too. And so it's kind of like getting a diagnosis of something, I want to say cancer, because living in something like that, it could literally ruin your life and shorten your life. Go see a doctor. Let this be your doctor in a way to help you, realize what you're going through and that you can come out of it.
You hate to look back with those what ifs, and so many go through that as you were talking about, and obviously recognize in talking to people and the response from the book. The book is End Your Relation, and the last part of that is sh*T, with compassion, self-respect, and logic. D.L. Dempsey, Dempsey is the author and our guest on the program. Book at writersrepublic.com. You'll find it at Amazon, the usual places. Go to our website, and there's a direct link on there as well. I think you mentioned this, but as you're talking about the book, this really can be applied to just about anybody. What you're talking about in the book really can be applied to about everyone, can't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. If you are in a mentally and emotionally draining relationship, with a T at the end, not necessarily a P, this book, this will guarantee to help you at least a little bit.
Well, it will. And you mentioned this is the book that you wish you would have had. How did you get through your problems? And what difference do you think it would have made? Well, again, you said this is the current talking to the past self. How much difference would this book would have made by following your own advice, although you didn't know it was your advice at the time you were going to come up with years later?
I wouldn't have lost myself. I certainly lost who I was as a human and as a woman in my marriage because I became codependent. I worried more about my husband at the time than I did myself, and even everybody before him that I ever dated. I spent too much time focusing on the other person, and I completely lost what I was passionate about. I lost the kind of person that I am and how I spoke to people and how I opened up to people. And I lost the ability to become vulnerable and understand my own emotions. I wouldn't have gone through that.
How difficult is it to come to that realization, number one, and number two, do something about it to rectify it, because you were able to do that? How difficult is it to realize I'm not happy and it doesn't have to be this way, and then B, I'm going to do something about it?
It took me about 8 years to realize that, so it was extremely difficult. I saw therapists every single week for 8 years.
Wow.
Sometimes, I had trial and error finding a therapist that really spoke to me in a way that was inspiring and opened my mind in that way. And it was with an Air Force chaplain who I met 6 years after having started therapy. And the Air Force chaplain, he was the one that really opened my mind to realizing that the world doesn't work this way, and that my reality that I'm living through is a reflection of my own beliefs. And that's actually a quote by Brene Brown, a really well-known author. And that is what sparked my willingness to say, wow, I believe all of this negative stuff about myself because of what I'm living through, and I don't have to. I can change my beliefs. It's okay to change your beliefs. But it took around 6 years for me to realize that, and about 2 more years to finally do something about it.
Well, I was going to say that.
And having a child, yeah. And sorry, sir. And I was going to add on that, having a child really helps you realize that too, because you don't want your own kids to go through that.
Well, yeah, to see the same thing, I think, well, that's just the way life is, I guess. That's not the example, which they're obviously getting from you. And it's interesting that the second part of that, once you come to that realization, that's one thing to think in my mind, I need to change this, but to actually to implement that, to make those changes, the confrontations that are inevitable as you do that. How difficult is that? Because your book really sort of takes people's hands and walks them through that, because that's difficult emotionally, isn't it, to actually do something about it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's extremely difficult. A lot of the greatest things that happen in life, though, are the most difficult. Like starting a new job. Maybe it's your dream job, and you go for the interview. That's the most challenging thing you might have gone through at that point in your life. But this book is kind of like that interview. Are you going to use this book and have a good conversation, or are you going to freeze and put the book down and maybe let it sit there for 6 months, where you could be working your dream job and living your dream life right now?
The book, the subtitle, With Compassion, Self-Respect, and Logic. Talk about each of those and how important those are. Compassion, self-respect, and logic, all components in making this decision, aren't they?
Yeah, making this decision and acting on it is an art and a science, and it doesn't have to be nasty. The compassion part, not only is it, do I help you focus on having compassion for the other person, but also having compassion for yourself in the process. Self-respect. Are you going to act in ways that you wouldn't normally act when it comes to figuring all of this heavy information out? Or are you going to respect your own boundaries in the process? And then the logical part, that's where the science part comes in, and that's where I provide the step-by-step instructions on how to guide a conversation. And that's where the logic behind that happens to, it kind of correlates with the compassion in a sense that, you don't want to use sharp words. You don't want to humiliate the person and, put it on social media. And yeah, that's, I try to focus on the art and the science while also respecting yourself and the other person.
I sort of focus on going through and the emotional turmoil when you reach this decision, implementing it. Let's talk about the other side of that. After you've made the decision, you've done what you needed to do to get your life back. What does that feel like when you came out of this? What was it like that I went through all of this and now I control my life? What's that feeling like?
It felt like liberation.
Yes.
It felt like I was in a prison, like I was a prisoner of war for so long. And now I could finally breathe. I can finally think for myself. I could finally dress how I want to dress. I could finally raise my son with compassion and not, any kind of, I don't want to, talk about his father in any kind of negative way, but, I want to be able to give my son myself. I don't want to give my son a mother who is oppressed. I want to give my son the kind of mother who knows herself and is respectful of herself and knows her boundaries, so I can teach him how, I wish I would have been raised. It was completely liberating and completely eye-opening, mind-opening, and I have made my life happen the way I've always dreamed of since I was a child, and I would not have been able to do that had I stayed in that marriage.
The book we're talking about is End Your Relation, SH*T, and With Compassion, Self-Respect, and Logic. Book available at writersrepublic.com and the bookshop, of course, Amazon, all the usual places. The author is D.L. Dempsey, and we're back much more on today's program after these messages. We're back. You're listening to This Week in America. Our guest is D.L. Dempsey. Very important book we're talking about. The book she's written, winner of the Plume Award for Literary Excellence. The book is End Your Relation and Not Ship. The last part of that is SH*T, With Compassion, Self-Respect, and Logic. D.L., I mentioned some of the places the book's available. Where would you suggest people go to get a copy of your book?
Well, everyone likes Amazon. It is on Amazon. Otherwise, whatever really fancies you, to be honest. I'm not worried about commissions or anything. I'm more worried about getting the message out. So whatever is the easiest option for my readers, that's what I recommend for them. And I'm actually going to set up an audiobook this summer as well. So look out for that.
Fantastic. And that will help a number of people as well. You've done so well with this book. Excellent reviews, award-winning book. Are you working on other books?
I am actually. I am working on my second book that talks about the other end of the spectrum, about how to live through and become empowered and heal from breakups, from being broken up with. I was in a relationship where I was the one who was dumped for my first time in my entire life, and it completely changed my life. So I wanted to write about that, and that'll be my second book, so I can kind of hopefully help the other people on the other side of the spectrum.
And that's so important, and I hope we have a chance to talk about that as well. How are you coming with that? Are you ready for publication?
Almost, not quite, but my goal is by the end of June, it should be ready for publication.
Oh, fantastic. The way the year is going, it will be here before you know it. So I'm looking forward to having a chance to talk about that as well. I mentioned where the book is available. How about social media? Are you on social media? Can people follow you there?
Yes, I do have a Facebook account at DL_Dempsey. And I'm actually new to TikTok. I'm starting to make TikTok videos.
Very good.
About the book and about some of my experiences and such. But you can follow me on TikTok and DL Dempsey as well.
And we'll have all that on our website, thisweekinamerica.us. A few minutes left in the program. Any final advice, anything that you would like to say to people in the audience who find themselves in a bad situation, who would like to do something about it, finally do something about it? Any advice to them as we wrap up here?
My advice would be to stop, look around, smell a flower if you can, think about what you're grateful for, and go with that. because the gratitude that I had at the time that I decided to make this happen, that's what kept me going. It was the things that I am grateful for, such as being alive, having my child, having my family. Think about what you're grateful for and go with that, and let that be your guiding power for going through the book and changing your life. If I can do it, anybody could do it.
Well, I mentioned if you find yourself in a bad situation, I guess each individual defines that in their particular style. Yep. What is a bad situation? Yep. Do you find in talking with people that people, when they think about it, yeah, it's a bad situation, but they just thought it was sort of normal. That's the way life is. I've seen that in my parents. Life has its ups and downs. What is a bad situation? Something they should go, wait a minute, this isn't right. I shouldn't be treated like this. I really need to resolve this.
Where your boundaries are pushed, where your boundaries are constantly pushed, where you are being manipulated, where somebody gaslights you and tells you that what you're thinking and seeing is not reality. That's a bad situation. That could be manifested through verbal abuse or just verbal altercations. It could be manifested through love bombing, where somebody gives you everything that you can possibly want, yet they're not meeting your emotional needs. Or it could be physical violence too. I encourage everybody, if you're going through a physically violent situation, get out of there. Call 911 and use the pepperoni pizza technique. Have you heard of that, sir?
No, I haven't.
The pepperoni pizza technique is where you call 911, where you have your abuser in the household with you, and you order yourself a pepperoni pizza. They'll say, this is 911, correct? And they'll say, and then you as the caller say, yes, I know, I would like an extra large pepperoni pizza. And then 911 should be the ones to say, oh, so you're in the presence of somebody where you cannot speak freely, correct? And you say, yes, I would like an extra large, please, as fast as you can. I'm really hungry. And then they'll send somebody over. You give them their address because the abuser thinks you're ordering a pizza, but
yes.
Nope, they come and they help you out.
So much safer than dialing 911 and explaining everything. I was not aware of that. I'm sure techniques like that you'll find in D.L. Dempsey's book available, again, Amazon, WritersRepublic.com, and the bookshop will have links on our website. What kind of feedback are you getting, and what's this been like for you in writing the book and seeing what you went through, helping people in a very positive way? It has to be rewarding that you wrote the book and you're touching people.
Absolutely. I feel it's helping me fulfill a great purpose in life. I became a registered nurse because I want to help people, but also helping, writing this book, it's allowing me to help people in the way I really, truly want to help people. My whole entire life, I have childhood trauma since as early as 3 years old. And, I've been on this amazing healing journey in the last couple of years, and writing this book was completely therapeutic for me. So therapeutic, because it helped me understand from an outside perspective what I went through and how easy it could be, because the facts are in front of you. The facts are there. You just have to have the willingness and strength and encouragement and empowerment to actually go seek that information. And it was absolutely therapeutic, and I couldn't have asked for a more better experience.
It's interesting because I think what you're saying is it's never too late, is it?
Oh, definitely not.
Just because this has been your life, you can go back and sort of unpack all of this from your past and go forward in a positive way, and certainly can tell in your passion for doing this and the tone of voice that you're in a good place now, helping yourself and now helping other people. D.L. Dempsey, that's Dempsey. The book, End Your Relation, and the End of the World Relation, the End of the Word Relation, *T, with compassion, self-respect, and logic. Book available, of course, at all the usual places. DL, it's been a pleasure having you on the program. A really important topic. Thank you for joining us. Look forward to having you back on the program with us again. Thank you for being with us today.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I'm so beyond grateful. I appreciate you.
Well, I appreciate you being here and telling your story and helping so many other people. It's D.L. Dempsey, Dempsey. All the information on our website, thisweekinamerica.us. We're back on today's program after these messages.
This Week in America is online. You can visit our website, thisweekinamerica.us. Scott Pinkerton, associate producer of This Week in America. Jay Anderson, segment producer. Ben Watson, webmaster. Otto Bechet, director of engineering and TV production. This Week in America produced and is a trademark of Blue Funk Broadcasting, LLC. For information on all of our guests and to listen to this week's show, our website again at thisweekinamerica.us. And I'm Sean Bratton, executive producer of This Week in America.